actually reach some of the people who we most want to reach might be to have some sort of teach-in at the school, where we might have people with the forms that you could help them fill in for the benefit, the broadband benefit. Kind of technical. And if there's somebody there at a table and you can sit and do it right there. So it would be and there might need to be more than one of these because people can't always make it. So maybe we do this a couple times. So it's kind of like a teach-in and a application, whatever.
And there's money, the people that should get that money may not be paying attention to whatever channels of information they have.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that the people who are most likely eligible for this not only don't know that they're eligible, don't know how much it is, and wouldn't be able to access it. But if you advertise this as, there's $30 a month that's available, you have to apply for it. It's not, nobody's going to come and knock on your door. We're going to explain how it works, and we'll help you fill in the application right there if you want. Some people might show up.
Yeah. So similar to that, it's what other corporate money nationally is available for digital inclusion that we could potentially get involved with. And I know in some areas that I've been involved with, like Microsoft, for example, there was significant money available to come to communities with some digital inclusion programs.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm just wondering, as we look in here in our community, there's local organizations that might be tied to that, but also there's some national efforts that we could tie into to bring in. And for our community, even if we brought in $10,000, it would be hugely significant.
That's a really good point. And now Susan did mention, so NDEC themselves apply, but it would be worth asking her, are there additionally things that the town has to apply for that don't come,
Right.
that you're only qualified to apply for if you're the actual recipient town?
Right.
Yeah.
On that same point, I did want to mention one other key thing about corporate help, and this relates to LCI. In the paper, she talks about the Affordable Connectivity Program and the $30 per month. And then in that same paragraph, there's also the one-time discount of up to $100 to purchase a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet from participating providers. Eligible households can enroll through a participating broadband provider or directly with the Universal Service Administrative Company using an online or email application. So in that paragraph, she had a hot link to the list of participating broadband providers, of which LCI is not one.
Is not one of them.
Is not one.
Now, is this specifically for a device or for
device?
Okay.
This is for a laptop, desktop, or tablet.
Okay. I don't really understand why that's connected to the service provider versus like a computer company.
Well, the way she explains it here, and I didn't actually know about this. Eligible households can receive this one-time discount of up to $100. So presumably you still have to pay something to purchase a laptop, desktop, or tablet from participating providers. Eligible households can enroll either through the participating broadband provider, which there's a list given by state of which LCI is not one. There are many others in Maine who are, but LCI is not one. Or directly with the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, using an online or mail-in application. So that's another thing we could do at this sign-up, at this community sign-up. You could also offer people $100 towards, and we'd have to figure out ourselves the mechanics of how this works and go look at the application and all of that. But I bet that there are people who would be happy to have that.
Yeah.
You might be able to have, a program at the library where there's an ongoing ability to come in. Somebody will help you get into that link there to sign yourself up and
train the volunteers at the library to help.
The way I read this is that Link should take us just people who participate in the ACP. And it sounds like any provider that participates in the ACP also somehow moves this one-time discount of $100. So maybe.
Yeah, but if you go and look at the list, which I did, which is by state that link is to, there are a whole bunch of providers in Maine, but not, LCI is not listed as LCI, it's listed
Right,
as.
but we've been told that LCI does participate in the ACP.
LCI
Maybe the list.
participates in the $30, but not the $100.
Right.
What I'm saying, you can't tell from the paragraph a difference between the $30 and the $100. It seems to me,
They're two different things.
yes, but there's only one link, and I'm guessing that the link is supposed to be all the ACP providers, and if you're an ACP, this is a part of it.
Well, that's
Eligible can also receive.
maybe that's a clarification we should ask her.
Yeah.
It's page 6.
Yep.
But in any case,
Well, it says either through a participating
May I ask?
broadband provider or directly with the universal. So it sounds like there's two different ways to come out.
right, and I think that,
I bet we can get Tidewater to participate.
well, we can either, that would be the first best thing.
Yep.
That's the first best thing, because obviously that increases take rate. And then the next best thing is that we at least educate people, because that's a lot of money, $30 a month plus $100 towards a computer.
Right.
I mean, I'd show up for a meeting.
And we could have recommended laptops that are, have coaching on, here's a $500
Well,
laptop.
we could have people, I've been, my husband does this for the NDC, he explains what's a laptop, what's a desktop, what's a tablet. I mean, there could be a little webinar that explains everything we're talking about, including the equipment, and gives you a chance if you want to sign up.
Arlene, did you have something?
Well, I just want to know that, what I was trying to figure out, it is what's the connection with LCI when you sign up for the affordable broadband? And also, so that is $30 off. However, there is a $100 connection fee. And there is people maybe having to buy a router to hook up. Maybe the one that they have for DSL might not be adequate. I'm just saying those are the other, and Stephen, I think what you're saying is this is covered by a web seminar?
Well, I'm saying that, yeah, we would have a teach-in where all of these kinds of questions could be asked. Obviously, we'd have to make sure that there were smart people.
Because I'm wondering, when people have connection problems, is it also related to equipment? Do they have
I think you're right.
What is it, Wi-Fi, so we're up to Wi-Fi 6?
I think you're absolutely right. But, my thought would be we would, of course, have LCI invited to come to this. And they would be here to answer questions.
Well, I'm just saying, is there a partnership with their customer service? And this, I think somewhere in the plan, she also had that our service provider has to somehow sign up for this as well.
That's a good idea. That's a very good idea, having the customer service really baked into what we're talking about. So it's all tied together.
Right.
But Arlene raised a good point about the hump you have to get over for the initial connection fee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that's covered well. Maybe I missed it, about how we help surmount that obstacle.
So that's a great segue into page 7, the top, the plan, the strategies. So 2 through 4, how does the committee feel about recommending these bullet points? Do we want to recommend to the town that we spend town money on this, or do we think that's too far?
Yes.
So let's start with strategy 2. So raise funds and facilitate access to an additional local broadband benefit for low-income homes that cannot afford a broadband connection.
And I wouldn't limit it to low income. I think the elderly part of this is huge. So I think we should aim more broadly to reach out to older people that don't know how to access it, and also low income families that don't.
So how much money do you think the town should spend on this every year?
I have no sense of what it will cost. I have absolutely no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a lot of money, looking at what Susan had sent us.
Well, I think that before we recommend something, we should answer that question.
Of course, yeah.
So I think we should ask her.
Yeah.
How does one calculate the costs? Because there are several places in here where costs are left blank.
Yeah.
And I think we should, either press her to do it or tell us what the variables are you need to know to do it.
Well, so I've got the Lincolnville poverty guidelines pulled up here that Susan sent us. And so from here, we can get some sense of median household income. Less than in Lincolnville, there's 40 households that make less than $10,000 a year. There's 62 households that make between 10,000 to 20,000, and then there's 89 households that make between 20 and 35,000. So a total of 191 low-income households. So you could take that as one metric. And so if we were to give them all a monthly benefit, say $30 a month, and then you multiply that out, just to give us all some idea of what this could cost, and then ask ourselves how we feel about that.
Right.
And if that's the best use of town money.
So that's not how to do it. That would just be the lump sum. There are potentially this many households.
I mean, we'd have to explain our assumptions
Right. Yeah.
to the board.
Well, 191, I'd call it 200 households, 30 a month is $6,000 a month. So that's pretty easy to figure out. That's a lot of money.
But so, and it doesn't include, because this doesn't include the one-time connection cost.
Right. This is just if the town were to give these 200 households $30 a month subsidy, that would be $72,000 a year.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the right way to calculate it, because the $30 is what the federal subsidy is. We are talking about something above that.
Right, on top of it.
On top of
Right.
that.
So currently,
that could be $5. It could be $10. It doesn't have to be $30.
no, of course. And so
We were tossing around $30 at the last meeting as
And I think
that's why I said 30.
that was arrived at as about a $70 total cost, 30 and the household tips in 10, right? Wasn't that how we got to do that $30
So, yeah.
addition?
Yeah.
Because the question that was asked was, well, what's regarded as affordable for a household, and something like $10 a month came up.
Arlene, do you have your hand up?
I had another, I do have another point, but not another area.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that when I looked on, it has to do with the presence of a computer and type of internet subscription. And one of the things I looked at, and I think Susan touched on this, but I'm wondering if we can kind of get some more finer information regarding this. It says the broadband internet subscription is 833 subscribers, which is 90% of the households. And she also mentioned that this is the DSL connection as well. Is that
I'm
something?
admitting, Susan.
Am I remembering this right? That one of the issues with the 833 is it includes DSL?
Yes, she said that.
Okay. Is there any way that
Hi,
we
Susan.
can get the information is there any way that we can get the information for how many have fiber and how many people have DSL?
Yes, we can.
Okay, because I just think that would be an important point. To have, because right now it looks like, oh, broadband, 90% of the people have it. And that's not, we're looking at fiber. We're not looking just at we're not looking at DSL. So
Susan, we're just going through right now the top of page 7 and I'm just trying to gauge the general temperature of the room of how members feel about each strategy.
So back to the funding thing, I would want to see the towns have money either through grants or through the taxpayers, getting the word out that this $30 subsidy is available. And then I would want to see some funds available, if we don't have it from other places, to help people below the poverty thresholds to access it. I don't think it would be nearly as big as what we just said, because a lot of those people aren't going to apply or even know about this. So if you had a pool each year of $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000, I mean, it doesn't have to be the giant number we were talking about a minute ago.
Right.
There's a large quantity of these folks that are, no matter how, if we made it free,
Oh, no, they're not.
I'm never gonna do it.
Actually,
But I'm much more interested in making sure we promptly get the word out.
Right.
And that if we have these services, particularly old people, know about it.
So Susan,
I was just,
you're just in time because we've accumulated a whole bunch of questions to ask Susan.
How much money do we need?
can I?
Hold on, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to frame, I think a good way to look at this is, let's say we had $10,000. How, given these priorities, how would we like to see that spent, just as a thought experiment? I think that's something to think about. We should come back to it in a little while after we ask Susan some of the questions.
Yeah, good.
So one of the questions was a clarification question on page 6.
Got it. And good evening, everybody. Good to see you all, and great to see you all excited about your digital equity plan.
We were so excited that we started talking about it before you even got here.
I know, how exciting.
Okay, so page 6.
Okay,
So we're talking about the Affordable Connectivity Program and the USAC that's in that paragraph. So a point of clarification is we understand that the Affordable Connectivity Program helps qualified families, that is, who are below 2x the federal poverty line. That's what you explained before, right?
Yep.
They are eligible for a $30 per month credit towards their broadband service. Okay. Then the part that was confusing is the additional $100 to purchase a laptop, desktop, or tablet, in other words, for hardware. Number one, is that the same population, the 2x of the poverty line? And number two is, do we understand correctly, since Tidewater LCI is not listed on the participating broadband provider link that you provided? I didn't see them there. I saw other providers in Maine, but not Tidewater or LCI.
yeah, Tidewater is, because I've talked to Alan Hinsey about this. So yes, they are a participating provider. They may be under one of their other names versus LCI or Tidewater, but yes, they are eligible providers. So I've put this in here because it is the text that comes out of FCC. And FCC, under the Affordable Connectivity Program, will allow $100 per home for a device. The issue here in Maine, there are no providers. It has to be provided, the device has to be provided by the provider, and the provider would bill FCC for that Okay, and there is not a provider in the state of Maine that is doing that. One, because that's not what they do, right? They're providing broadband. They're not providing equipment. And two, you can't get anything for $100, which is another whole issue. So, and FCC will not allow third-party intervention on it. So in other words, a provider could work with like Give IT, Get IT. Give IT, Get IT has some Linux machines for about $100, but again, they're Linux machines, not Windows-based or or something that people are much more used to using. So it's in there because that is the verbiage coming out of the FCC, but the reality is that we're not going to see any providers doing devices unless FCC changes its model.
I will say now that the FCC site is really broken today, but when I finally got through, it showed me Alabama, and there's a check mark as to whether you participate in the device portion or not. It's not showing me Maine, so.
No, I got in earlier. I also had to try a few times, but I got in earlier and I did see Maine, and I only looked up LCI and Tidewater. I didn't look up any other doing business as names,
Right.
but those two names didn't have a check.
Well, there you go. It's that check mark that answers
Yeah,
the other
so,
question.
and then the other issue going on in Maine, just as an FYI, there are these pop-up shops going on around, you're seeing them at fairs and, malls or strip malls, and they are sort of the fly-by-night cell phone companies that are trying to, they're basically saying to the innocent victim, we're going to give you this and you're going to sign up for the Affordable Connectivity Program and you don't have to pay a thing and you'll have internet access. Now, FCC is aware of that, as are some of the advocacy groups around the country, because what typically that means is that there's really lousy cell phone coverage and it's not enough. It's not a cell solution for a home. It's for that one device. So we're aware of it. Our staff is aware of it. We get a lot of calls around it because somebody gets a device and they call us and say, hey, this isn't working. And we're not surprised about that. So that's just an FYI as we're seeing some of the more not so professional organizations trying to bring in customers for, easy revenue.
So did I understand what you just said was that if we were trying to promote the monies that are available, the $30 per month is definitely something we should do, but the $100 for hardware in Maine is not really viable right now?
Not realistic.
Just the price things.
So I would say we should just cut that from our plan then, since
Okay.
it's
Definitely.
Susan, you had mentioned last meeting that LCI had floated the idea of no longer requiring the phone line. Have you gotten clarification from?
I've not heard from Alan. I have heard some rumblings in the industry that they're considering it, but I've not heard confirmation on any of that.
Okay.
Okay, so then one of our next Ask Susan questions, but you kept a list also.
Well,
Keep going to
Okay.
the
Keep going until I run out. Ask Susan question number 2 was connection fees.
Yeah.
And how we should, because, and this is just sort of a macro statement about the overall draft that you submitted, which everyone thought ranged from amazing to wonderful. I think wonderful was the worst comment. So we're all very.
We're easy graders.
We're but the big thing we noticed was that costs are not included, and we obviously, if we were going to ask the select board for money, we have to explain how we got to that number, whatever the number is. So that the work remains to be done to figure out that. So one of the components of that cost is the cost of connection. And how do you advise us to think about that?
Yeah, so I had after our last meeting, I talked to Mark about and got his feeling around the whole affordability, and did he think it would be, I asked him, do you think it'd be a viable option to negotiate with LCI around guaranteeing a percentage of take rate would reduce the overall cost of all the homes? And he said the bigger issue is going to be connection fees. That the $100 connection fees may be a non-starter for some families. And he basically, what he said, it all comes down to how much LCI is putting into a project versus the town is putting into the project. And when a town puts more money in, you have much more negotiation power. But it's hard to have negotiations if the match on the grant application is going to come from LCI. So you can see what I did is I highlighted some of these areas because this is something that you all have to sort of dig into. Like, what is it, if you're going to go to the town for money, are you going to go for, are you going to go for installation? Is the town contributing any money where you've got some negotiation power? And I'm not sure about where you are with that. So I think it's a good discussion to have.
Do you have a point of view about that?
From what I've seen in the consulting space, the match is extremely important. And even,
But is it like 50-50?
No, you could, 50-50 is great, but you could succeed, at least from what I've seen, at 80-20 or 70-30.
The 80 coming from the provider. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you a question. So let's just take 80-20. What's the math, Susan, of how we figure this out? Do we take, what did you say, Michael? We have 200 households that qualify? We can't hear
You're
you.
muted.
The number's right.
109.
Yeah, I don't know what level of where, what level of income we want to set as the boundary.
Well, let's go with what Susan said. It's 2x. So if the level is 2x of the poverty level, and the poverty level is 35,000 for a family of 4, right?
Yeah, so let me just add something in here. I sent you all the Lincolnville poverty guidelines.
Yes.
And so that sort of made me pause on the 200%, so that the column, do you need me to put it up? Because I can, if it's easier just to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let me share the screen. Okay, all right, so here we go. So this is so when someone's applying for the FCC ACP benefit, this is the threshold, right? So for an individual, the family median income is 27,800, and you can see as it gets to a family of 4, it's 55,500. So this made me pause when we're looking at providing additional subsidy, whether it's for installation fees, whether it's to offset broadband, because I'm sort of leaning towards that. These are the numbers that you should be going with in deciding your threshold for subsidy, not these numbers. Does that make sense?
Can you say that one more time?
Sounds.
Okay, if when someone applies for, let's just take a family of 4. Family of 4 applies for ACP, their family median income is 55,500 per year. They get approved and they get a $30 per month discount. But as I think about that in relationship to an additional subsidy coming from the town, I think we should just use the federal poverty guidelines, the basic federal poverty guidelines, which means a family of 4 is 27,750.
Okay.
So that, right? So that you're still. I mean, the only reason that this is inflated the eligibility by 200%, but the homes that that you're most concerned about are those that fall into the basic federal poverty guidelines.
Okay,
Do we
so
know how many?
if we just add real numbers to the math here, I'm looking at the 2020 Town of Lincolnville database that, was, that you sent.
Yep.
The one that has 921 households?
Yeah, so I copied and pasted some of that information. So the median family households in Lincolnville that have a family median income of 35,900 or less is 191,
Okay,
right? So that's that. And then the second number is the federal poverty guideline, right? So it's 4.5% of the homes in Lincolnville meet the federal poverty guidelines, which is this column here.
well, but 200 is not 4.5% of 921.
No, your 4.5% is of the family households in the community, not the number of households, but just the family households.
Right, so it's 20, we're saying there are 29 households that are under 100% of the FPL.
Correct.
And how many under two, and roughly 191 out of under 200%.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can see how the numbers, what the difference in the number, it's almost double.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that when you're making a decision about, you only have so much money and you need to go as far as it possibly can, you may keep it to those that, to the actual federal poverty guidelines. I'm going to stop sharing again. I think of when we were working with the Office of Community Development, which follows the CDBG guidelines, we had forms that we had to fill out that the family had to meet the income eligibility for that particular county. And it was in line with those federal poverty guidelines, but it did change a bit from county to county.
Well, I'm just trying to get to what number should we use in our assumptions of cost that we're going to put to the select board.
So even looking at that, 29 to 191,
That's
and
a
we
big
know there's going
difference.
to be a chunk that aren't going to take advantage of. If we said 100 households need assistance at $100 a household to get connections, it's $10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes a very quick round number.
It's much easier to sell the connection fee, one-time thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you ask the town to take on an obligation to fund people's internet for the
No,
foreseeable future, that's not going
Won't
to
happen.
happen.
No, it has to be a finite number and we have to have a logic
Yeah.
of how we picked it.
If I had to pick, I would go with the less than 10,000 and the 10,000 to 19,900. That's 100 homes just in those two numbers.
Yeah.
Right, and likely those families that are meeting the federal poverty guideline, there's going to be a percentage of those homes that are going to fall in under the 19,900.
Under the,
So-
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I sort of didn't understand.
That's okay. Right now, right, between your less than 10,000 and the 10,000 to 19,
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
right, is 102 homes. And the probability that of those 102 homes, the homes that are included in the percentage of federal poverty guidelines, you're probably hitting a lot of those homes. So I think I think that it's going to be hard to back into the federal poverty guidelines because it's based on family size.
Right.
Where the actual median household income is based on family income. Regardless of how many people are in the house.
And you may not have this experience, but if we have 102 homes and we successfully promote that we have the fees available, how many people should we estimate will take us up on the offer?
Well, you got to, so there's sort of two battles on that. One is convincing people who are non-users that an
Yeah.
internet connection is important. So you may have you may have a lot of older adults here. Think back to those broadband statistics. There were a higher number of older adults who were not subscribing to broadband. So you still have that sort of, that group to consider.
Jake.
Yeah,
So I have a question. We talk about the connection fee as a one-time lump sum, but for instance, if you go to your cell phone provider, they'll give you a phone and charge you $5 a month. The phone is free, quote, except it gets tacked on $5 a month for a certain period of time. Does the town or in your experience, is there any plans like that where the town would upfront the money to LCI and get a payback?
no, but that's an interesting concept, right? Because if you were paying, you're right. If you could, let's just say 100 homes, $100 per home, the town gave it to LCI. LCI then charged the customer, like you're saying, $5, let's just say $5 a month. LCI would then be paying the town back. You'd have to convince LCI and you'd have to convince your town to do that, but it's a great theory.
Yeah, I was just thinking because people are familiar with that plan. Anybody who has a cell phone probably has done something similar.
Accounting and management. Yeah.
Susan, this may be in the data that you've sent us, but out of the 102 homes that make between 10,000 to 19,999, how many of them already have internet?
I'll have to
I
pull
mean,
up.
maybe it's
I'll-
half of them.
Yeah, I'll pull up the data and let me see if I can catch that one real quick for you.
It says 47
Oh, there you go, Stephen.
internet subscription.
Where you,
I'm looking at the 2020 Town of Lincolnville demographics and the first worksheet, which is the demographics worksheet, and I'm looking at the household data.
And I wonder probably perhaps many of those came in under the CARES Act too.
Yeah, according to this, the number of household without an internet subscription for less than 10, there are 5, and 10 to 19, there are 15.
okay, I see that now. So, I mean, really, are we just talking about 20 homes?
If they take it.
If they take it.
So
Can
they
I-
need a number.
May I ask a question with the CARES Act? Wasn't there a limited time frame with that to be enacted? Isn't
Yeah,
that-
that's over with
That's
now.
come and gone, but
who maybe subscribed to the CARES Act initially now have to pay full rate, correct?
correct.
Correct, yeah.
Or they're subsidized, and isn't it, they can currently get a subsidy through Taiwan.
Right.
But I also think the other thing to consider on the data numbers that we're looking at, that 5 and 15, that you're still going to have an installation cost for fiber, right? So for many of those homes that are between the 10 and 19.9, they have a DSL connection. They've already paid an installation cost. They're going to have to pay another installation cost. So
And of course, and we're kind of also not mentioning the fact that a lot of these homes may be down a private road and the installation cost is not $100, it's $2,000. And so, that adds another wrinkle in this, of course.
Well, let me ask, why does LCI charge $100 installation fee? I understand why they did a $2,000 installation fee for a long run, but if they're charging $70 a month, that $100 seems like sort of almost gratuitous.
Well, they say it's to
This is
cover,
capital intensive.
yeah, they say it's to cover the 250 feet and the box that makes it all work.
Right. Stuff's not cheap.
But it sounds like we have agreement that the parameters would be for this 102 household. Yeah, we have to do the analysis of who doesn't have broadband, but whatever that is.
Yeah.
We'll figure out
Fiber,
what the
yeah.
connection cost is, and then we'll figure out through Susan or somebody else what we project the take rate will be, and that number is what we would tell the selectmen we want to have funded.
Right.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, can be a pool of money that qualify first come, first serve, and when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yep, that too.
Well,
And
we
we
could-
may want to apply more than $100, because it's going to be, some are going to be $100, some are going to be $400, some are going to be whatever.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah.
do our math on 150 or 170 or whatever the number is.
Right.
Yeah,
So
really, we just have to arrive at some rationale for
Right.
that lump of money that we're going to ask for.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Right.
10,000, 20,000, or who knows.
And you may want, so like 100 times 100 is 10,000, right? And you could, because maybe you will have to pay for 100 installations. So sort of crafting it that it can be used for installation and or to offset broadband costs gives you a little bit more flexibility of what happens with that 10,000 in case in case you don't need to have all that money for installation.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump around a little bit. So at the bottom of page 5, it says Lincolnville residents versus seasonal residents. Currently, there are approximately 291 year-round homes in Lincolnville, and we estimate there are XX seasonal homes. How did you come to the 291 year-round home number?
Oh, you know what? I think it's a typo.
Okay, I think it's
Yeah, I did it right backwards. It's 921, not 291.
I thought we had more people than that.
Thank you.
Maybe
When you read
I
something
don't know.
10 times and it just all blends in. Thank you for catching that.
all right. So there's that, and then the seasonal home. So we got an email from David Kinney, and he gave us 2 metrics, and we need to decide what to do with it. So the first one is that we have 640 homestead properties, and then we have 447 non-main addresses for tax bills, and then 393 main but not Lincolnville addresses. So
Did you send Susan that email?
I believe I did. Susan, did he give you this?
I haven't seen that yet.
All right, so I will forward that to you tonight. But I don't know if we just want to combine the main but not Lincolnville addresses with the non-main addresses and say that's our estimate for seasonal homes. I don't know.
No,
if
you
that's,
get tax bills is a tough one because a lot of tax bills go out for just property. And there's a lot of,
just
property, no
like a
house.
field. Okay.
And there's a lot of properties that there's I've looked at 5 or 6 just around my place that are going out to people out of state.
And in what bucket do people who are renting fall?
They wouldn't be covered.
It wouldn't be noted.
Well, they would be if they're residents. If they're using the rental property as their primary residence, they're going to be included in the data.
Okay.
But in terms of tax bills,
No.
so it's very
2
imperfect.
different sets of data.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we want to try to figure out how many seasonal homes we have?
Michael, didn't you earlier float a number for that?
Yeah, there's the 2020 census says that there are 481 vacant housing units. And another source says, it's 80% plus or minus 20% of those would be seasonal. So it's a big range, but 481 vacant, somewhere between 300 and all of them represent seasonal properties according to the census data.
I don't think it matters that much, so I think we should just take something objective like that and just make it.
481, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just got to call a number and
And it's an approximate. I mean, this is,
400 homes.
It doesn't really affect what we're doing.
No, it doesn't.
No.
I mean, you're not going to use any of the funds you raise for.
Out-of-state people who live on McGonagall.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. All right. Is there anything?
We should use 80% of the 481.
Is there anything in the draft plan that we don't like? We want to tell Susan, we don't like this. We want to take it out.
Susan, the point that I made earlier was great plan. Wanted more details on how we implement it all. And that has to come from us, but from you suggesting things. And, you know, how do you make the plan come alive and actually happen?
Yeah, so what this is this is your first draft, and this sort of gives you the outline, and then you as a committee determine what is it that you want to focus on, and including these budget items. So, and then once we have a budget, then we'll have a narrative to go along with that budget. So, and then there's when you're all done with me and we go and I've given you the final report here, what you want to make sure is that this becomes a living document and it continues on through the work that you're all doing or someone that you're assigning to it, because there are going to be opportunities for grants that aren't available now, but they might be available 6 months from now. And you're going to want to, when you look at a budget and all of the line items in the budget, you may look at a grant opportunity and say, oh, well, this section, let's just say for affordable devices, we can look for funding for those affordable devices through this funder. So the biggest thing right now is that it's sort of getting through, and you're doing it. You're sort of working your way through it. This piece about the installation costs. We're going to put that in the line item in the budget. That might be funded by the town. Maybe it won't be enough money from the town. And now you might have to look at other sources for that funding. So once we have all of this together and we have a budget, then there's a plan, as you can see in at the end of each of the action items. It has what's the goal, what's the strategy, and then what's the cost. And all of those those are going to be, it may not be done all at once. You may be doing it one thing at a time. But those are the things those are your action steps to move forward. Does that make sense?
I think one question that we all had, Susan, that would be interesting to hear your advice about is, based on your experience with other towns, is the broadband committee's work finished and we disband once all of this is here? Or do we have to stick around and oversee the execution of this? Or does the select board do that? I mean, the select board has already said that they are going to be the ones that negotiate directly with LCI. So that's an important piece of the work, which we are relieved of, which is great. But this whole implementation of the digital equity and inclusion piece is really quite a different matter.
Yeah.
And so my question is, some of us would like to be relieved of further responsibility.
Too bad.
But we also don't want to leave it half done. So what's your advice?
So there's a couple different ways to do this. We've had some communities that you have your broadband committee, and then there's a subgroup that's doing digital equity. You're sort of rolling it all into one. But then they have community advocates, a group that sort of comes out of this first group that stay together to continue the work of the plan and to continue to execute the plan, raising those funds. That's one. Do we find a committee that's going to sort of carry the torch going forward? There's a piece in here that talks about that. And then there's a piece that talks about a digital navigator. Does the community raise funds for a digital navigator? Then it's a paid position to keep this moving forward, right? And the logical places for a digital navigator is at libraries, because libraries are a great community space. but we need to make sure the library is agreeing with that, right? But a half-time digital navigator, even a 10-hour-a-week digital navigator can go a long way in a small community. So that's something certainly to consider. Of one town that the select board authorized funding for a grant writer to go after grants to support the digital equity plan, as well as some other things that the town wants to apply for. So it wasn't just exclusively for digital equity, but it was sort of like, well, we're going to have the grant writer to do this other work for the town. Let's have her do some grant writing for the digital equity. So you have a few. What you don't want what you don't want to happen is, after all of this work and all of this sort of thinking through all of this, you don't want this document at the end of the day to be sitting on a shelf somewhere, right? You want it to continue going forward. And especially as you look at it in relationship to take rate, making sure that everyone who wants a broadband connection can get a broadband connection, and breaking down the barriers that prevent that from happening for some families.
So I had requested from the select board that our charge be extended to December 27th, and everyone seemed pretty open to that idea. So we should have a draft charge on Monday to extend our current charge till then. And then I mentioned having a future charge that would be about executing this plan. So once we have the plan, then we could come up with that charge.
Yeah. Susan, I like the digital navigator combined with the library. We have a relatively new library that I think there's a lot of excitement about, but its reach may not be as broad as you might want it to be. But if that was kind of like the digital hub / library, and there was someone there who was competent, who could also get grants, who could also, and they were paid. So when we were making demands, it would have some follow through to it. I start to like that, because actually something could come out of that,
Yeah.
And if they had the ability to connect you to, here's how you get service from whoever that comes in and fixes your problem, all those types of things.
As we're going through this, I'm thinking of people who might, this is just off the top of my head, who we might invite to come to our meeting and discuss this. I mean, Sheila Polson is now the librarian at the library. Kathleen Oliver is also one of the founding librarians there. Kathleen was a school librarian originally as well, so she has some so I think inviting those people would be just a way to open up the conversation about, is this something viable? Is this something that they would consider a good thing for the library? It's not open. The library is not open that many, a lot. They're not also doing their monthly pros. COVID really wiped out a lot of things for them. Their funding was coming through their monthly programs. Their music and poetry and books, it was something that people attended. The other thing I was thinking of is when, the digital equity, the digital literacy in schools. Over 20 years ago, I was the tech coordinator for Lincolnville schools. And that's what we worked on. So a lot of the things that you're talking about, and Val Bemis right now is the tech coordinator for that school. So she would have a better handle on what they're doing, and if it's even necessary for us to go there. I don't know if you remember Robert Metcalf, the Ethernet person. Well, he was the person who gave the school over 20 years ago, funded us to have an internet connection at our school. So, and the other person, I was thinking the aging in place, and I know that Josh, you know her well, and I'm thinking of oh, let's see, what's her, Betty Johnson, who actually works a lot with aging in Waldo County. It's one of her programs. So she might be able to also give us insight into how we should approach it. So that's just off the top of my head of maybe getting people who might even want to continue this work in some fashion.
Arlene, that's exactly right. The people that you mentioned would be a great resource for a subcommittee to continue this work, right? And I put it in here I highlighted the section around the library. Before we can put this into the report, the library has to be on board. I'd really suggest that before you have the librarian come to a meeting, that somebody have a one-on-one conversation with the librarian and make sure that the librarian is willing to do this.
Can we task someone here right now to do that? Arlene? You mind having a conversation with Sheila?
Okay, I'll talk to them.
Okay.
And Arlene, once you talk to them, if you would like her to talk to me, feel free to give her my contact information, and I'm happy to follow the conversation.
I'm talking not really knowing some of it, but not really the whole fleshed out. This is like brainstorming.
And I think what you can do is if you took the section around, it is action step number 3, make Lincolnville Community Library the go-to spot. If you take that whole section and share that with the librarian and ask, what does she think? Would she be interested in that? Because your point is well taken. Libraries in Maine, for the most part, most of the smaller communities, the libraries are only open part-time, and they survive on book sales and bake sales, right? And so bringing in other resources for that library could be very appealing to a local library.
Oh, absolutely. It brings people into the library. I think the thing that, you said that struck a chord with several of us is rather than having a volunteer committee of citizens who comes and goes, having a paid person, even if it's a part-time paid person, elevates this to a much more professional level, and having that person affiliated with the library, makes a lot of sense. It adds traffic to the library. It adds content to what the library does for the community. It's a logical home. There's already broadband connectivity at the library. I know it's where a lot of the classes happen that NDEC does with local partners. So it's just a convenient, and we don't really have like a community center or anything else that fills that role, I don't think.
No. Yeah, Jake.
I have a question. It's sort of off to the side here, but the aging in place and the aging population that we have here in Lincolnville. I was wondering about the telehealth aspect, and how is that promoted and handled? I'm really ignorant about this. Is it something that happens between the local provider, Penn Bay, and individuals, or Northern Light, or does NDEC somehow promote that, or how is it?
Yeah, so there's when you're thinking of pilot projects, having a pilot project with Penn Bay around telehealth, increasing telehealth visits for their Penn Bay medical community, it is a possibility. We can do a budget that is specifically around the aging. Like if you just looked at the tablets, for instance, the tablets are great for an older group of people. And if they can use those in order to participate in telehealth visits between, you would want Penn Bay in as one of your partners. NDC can be a partner and help, teach some of the teach some basic skills to many people who don't, are just novice technology users. We have one project where for the aging in place component, they're looking to put in, the echo video where, for this is for shut-ins, and put in the Alexa Echo, where it's a video screen, and they can talk to it and they can say, I need help, or any of those things. So that's what one community is looking at. But I think bringing in Penn Bay, they may have nutritionists, they might have exercises, classes going on. I mean, they may have other resources that they would like to reach some of the community via video conference. We've seen that with other healthcare organizations. Maine General is a big one. They have classes on balance, they have classes on yoga, meditation, and they do it all over Zoom.
Okay, thanks.
The other organization that I think it's important for someone to have a conversation with is Belfast Adult Education, because Lincolnville is part of that district. And because we're talking about digital skills classes, but they also might be.
We're part of the CSD Adult Ed.
I think we're in both. I get flyers from both.
Yeah.
Oh, we're both. I've never seen anything from Belfast.
Okay, so if they're offering digital skills classes, you want to bring them into the conversation, right? Or if they're interested in doing some pilot projects and doing having some classes, we're happy to work with them on that. But I think that, again, if we're going to talk about adult education, and if I'm missing one of the adult educations, we want to add this in, then somebody should have a conversation with them so that they're aware of what is going on around this plan.
I'm a teacher in the CSD Adult Ed program, so I can.
And they have computer skills.
Great.
And there's real funding too, so you could actually ask that some of the funding that's already there be used
I'll
for.
talk to Elise and the director there. And have that talk with them.
Nice.
I wanted to ask, back to the paid person, do we have some sense of how much we want to budget for this person who's going to do the entire plan plus write grants?
So I have a budget so I'm going to put together a spreadsheet and send it to you based on tonight's conversation. And it will be, again, a working document, and I'll put in a whole section on a digital navigator. And the other thing that I'm going to send to you is a job description for a digital navigator. So this is a fairly new occupation. It has come out of the Digital Equity Act. NDEC has had a digital navigator on board for about a year. And what that person does is it helps. So if someone calls into our office and doesn't know where to start with technology, the digital navigator will help figure out what the person's skill level is. What do they need for a device? Do they even have an email address? And do they need to have some one-on-one tutoring to get that person up and running? And so there's some set skills on a digital navigator that can be really helpful. That said, if they're part of a library, that's going to follow in what the library may add in some other functions, which is perfectly fine. But it gives, I'll send you that job description just so that it might be a little helpful for everyone.
And we might be able to share that person with Hope or somebody else too, because they're asking the same questions.
Yeah.
Does Hope have a library?
They do have a library. And it's similar to ours. It's small and it's volunteer.
Any other thoughts from the committee about the draft plan? Anything we'd like to add to it that isn't here yet?
Let me just run through to make sure that I've got all the questions answered so that I can do a second draft for you.
Well, and Susan, before you do that, Michael, did you want to say something?
Oh, just specifics about the grants that are coming through the Maine Connectivity Authority and their impact on the, because there is that line extension, right? That's the one that we were thinking that LCI is going to apply for, and that would cover the installation cost, right? But we don't have no idea about when that is, where that is, or when that would happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't know yet. Yeah. Ford is working with them on that.
That's the reach me aspect of it.
Yeah. That's the only one we think is really viable for Lincolnville.
Right, but that obviously, if we had $10,000 in a fund that first goes to installation and then to subsidy, if that came through, that covers the installation piece for us. And we can use the money for the subsidy. Part.
The Reach Me line extension is November 14th.
There's 2 rounds.
Yeah.
First round is right off here, second round's February.
First round is not.
And there's no way at this point to get in on that round.
Okay, Susan?
Okay, so under the first action item, we are only going to leave in the strategy. Well, there are a couple different strategies. One is to hold classes in Lincolnville for folks to apply for the ACP benefit.
Yep.
The second is to raise funds for the $100 installation, but we're going to take out the additional benefit, and we're going to take out the negotiating with LCI. Is that correct?
I would keep strategy 4 in. I mean, I view this committee as just until the select board has done something that we think is good for furthering broadband, we should be advocating for what we think helps for, more broadband inclusion. So I would say keep strategy 4.
But you're saying strike number 2, which is the ongoing helping pay the cost of the.
Yeah.
Is that what you were suggesting, Susan, the number 2?
Yeah, I mean, we can leave it in, right? So you can leave it in, put it in as a line item in the budget. It's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, keep 4 in, but 2,
Yeah.
I would probably strike.
Okay, two.
I just need to say that. No.
I agree. I think we should strike 2. It just seems like a non-starter.
It is.
Okay, this 2 is to raise funds for additional broadband benefit, right?
Yeah.
Strike
Okay.
that.
And then we're going to keep in consider negotiating with LCI.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, on action number 2, we can put into the budget how much it costs to raise funds for tablets with Wi-Fi connectivity, which is different from tablets with cellular connectivity where you have recurring costs.
Yeah.
These could be used as a lending library and be distributed from the library. They could be used to target older adults. Under $10,000 will get you pretty far. And that's the type of project that Maine Community Foundation likes to fund.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Now, that's again with that, so that, if you had 10,000, how many tablets does that generate?
I think it's under 10 is 20 tablets, but let me set, I'll put it in the budget because I'm not sure if I'm thinking with cellular connectivity or not. So I'll send you the budget, and then you'll be able, it'll be in a spreadsheet, so you'll be able to change the quantity, and it will change all of the figures in the spreadsheet based on funding.
How do you circulate those in the community?
So in some communities, that's where the library can be really helpful because people can come and check them out, right? Could check out a tablet to be used over a specific amount of time. Others will focus on an older community member so that they can participate in telehealth visits or connect to family and friends as well. So it depends on the criteria. If they're a lending library or you're lending them out on a longer term basis, it's all in how you set up the program or combination.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
All agree on keeping that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yep.
pretty-
okay.
Great.
So we talked about number 3, and Arlene is going to talk to the Lincolnville Community Library and make sure that they're on board.
Mhm.
Arlene, one of the things that I was not sure is, do they have computers or laptops for public use?
I don't know how many computers they have. That's going to be something that we,
We'll
I know
find
they
out
have
from
some,
them.
but I don't know the quantity of them.
Great. And once you talk to her, like I said, if you want to connect me with her, I can ask her some of these
I think, yeah, that would probably be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
On the hot spots, like if you were going to have the beach a larger hotspot and the center a hotspot, have those costs come way down these days for the mechanical aspects of that, or?
I think they're around, if I remember from the last budget I did, around 3,500 for the equipment, one-time cost for the equipment, but you have to have backhaul, right? So that's where having Lincolnville LCI provide that backhaul service would be really important.
Because that kind of brands you in some ways if if you're selling your community to get people to come in and use the beach or come up here and use, that's a nice little.
Yeah, and you put out signs that say free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's a nice message for folks coming through.
Number-
And, and at the town walk, people are waiting for the ferry, so
Right.
they can get online. Okay.
Excellent.
So are we keeping that in?
Yes.
Out-of-staters having free Wi-Fi.
Okay. One of the other, I have one community that what they've done is for all of the free Wi-Fi in the community, from, hairdressers and coffee shops and other places where people have public Wi-Fi, they designed stickers that said Wi-Fi available here, and it was a nice way to advertise for the businesses to advertise that the Wi-Fi was available. And then they put all of those Wi-Fi locations on a map on their website. Okay. We talked about the 5-town CDS adult and it's Belfast adult education and the 5-town CDS adult and community education. So it would be helpful if someone talked to them about, the plan. And again, I'm happy once you've had that initial discussion, I'm happy to jump in.
And I'll talk to the 5-town CSD.
Okay.
Sure.
And then based on that, a pilot project might come out of that. So, I've seen pilot projects where you're targeting the business community and promoting, creating websites and managing social media and training staff. But I think I'd keep that as a placeholder on the pilot project until you've had a discussion with the adult education programs, because they may have some going on there.
Does anyone have any relationships with Belfast Adult Ed?
I don't mind if we really do have access to that, I'm glad to call them. Do we really have access to that?
Why don't you find out? And
Okay.
if we do, you
I'll ask
give them a call. Okay.
If I do, I'll tell them what we're.
Okay.
Right, because if you're not in their catchment area, then we want to take them out of the plan.
In that same area, I liked your ideas of reaching out to the hospital in Penn Bay or whomever. So I'd love somebody among us to find out whether they have a telehealth piece that might fit into our program.
I can make a blind call, the blind calling.
Yeah,
You think it's Penn, not Waldo?
I don't know.
Well, it's the same established coastal health, it's all Maine Health at this point, but.
Is Waldo part of Maine Health?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
both in the all Maine Health.
yeah. And I don't know if Northern Light gets down here or not, but.
I mean, it doesn't have
That's
to
not
be
very
the locals. If it's Maine Health, you could be just as well talking to somebody in Portland as, right?
Right. Yeah, so I'll try and contact somebody in Maine Health and see what the story is.
Okay, great.
I may have a contact person at Maine Health. We've done some work with Maine Health and Maine General. So let me see what I have and I can send if I've got a contact, I'll send it to you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. There are some communities that recruit students as volunteers. And again, it sounds great in theory, but then somebody has to manage them. Skowhegan has a program, I may have told you about this. This is pre-pandemic. They had a tech hub in their community center a couple afternoons a week where older adults could go in and get one-on-one assistance for technology training. That program had an advisor, was part of their volunteer public community service. It was a community service project. So they had a person from the school that oversaw that. So students are great, but then who's going to manage them? And so in there, it looks great on paper, but it's the execution of it. So, to Arlene's point, if you're bringing in the school, is that something that the school might be interested in doing? But something certainly to consider.
I really liked Arlene's idea of talking to the person that she mentioned, who is the technology person in the Lincolnville school, just to bring that person into the loop and see what comes out of the conversation. Is that another one that you could talk to, Arlene, since you already know her?
I haven't talked to Val in a long time. I can make that. I'm not sure that they would need this. And I'd have to figure out how to frame it. If anybody, a parent, has children in that school on this committee at the Lincolnville school?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm friends with the principal, so I can I'll chat with him and
Okay.
find out
Yeah,
how
that would
that.
probably be good.
And the question is, can they help us? Not can we help them, really? It sounds
Right, exactly. Could they, if you already have someone down there with technology skills, does that person have capacity to help at the library, whatever, just different things that could come up?
Right. And some schools do community, do community service part of to earn credit. So it's, I know that Jobs for Maine graduates, I'm not sure if Lincolnville has students there that are part of JMG, but JMG students have to complete so many service hours in the course of a school year. So,
problem is our students, it only goes up to 8th grade. So
okay, yeah,
Then they go into Camden, so it's hard to.
Yeah.
got it. So on this action number 4, we talked about the students, but then this is where I've mentioned the creation of a dedicated digital inclusion subgroup might be considered. And it's a good way to organize the business community as well as recruit community advocates. It could be, you could have, in an ideal situation, you have a digital navigator and she pulls together a group of volunteers to help with all of this. So just something to consider.
Okay.
I put in here under a strategy, strategy 1 is to connect the community advocates with NDEC, as well as the other main initiatives, the county connectors, the community of practice, community boosters, establish a volunteer program at the Lincolnville Community Library. Again, they would have to be on board with that. Raise funds and partner with Lincolnville Community Library to hire and support a part-time digital navigator. And then in this section, there's a recommend conducting a digital equity and digital inclusion survey, and it's in the appendix of what that survey might look like. Those are something that you can just think about. And in the budget, I'll put the budget in for a digital navigator.
Great. Okay.
I wasn't sure if there were any local newsletters.
We have a Google bulletin board or Google group, but we
Facebook.
don't, and Facebook. It's all digital though.
Right, I'll add those in.
But we could send flyers. We've done that before.
Well, and the Penn Bay Pilot and Village Soup both
Right.
cover Lincolnville pretty well.
Yeah, in the newspapers.
And
So
they have some news.
In your budget, there'll be a section in there for public awareness, and there'll be cost of flyers and how much to mail them. The town might have bulk mailing rates, so it might be cheaper than what I'm putting in the budget, so just something just to keep aware of. But I'll make that note on the budget. And that pretty much wraps it up. Pilot projects, those are projects that you decide, like, what is it out of all of this and of all of your community members? Are there one or two groups that you really want to focus on? What's coming up from today, what I'm hearing is older adults, healthcare, telemedicine. So that might be one project. The second one, up to you, not unusual to focus on the business community.
We don't have much of one.
The business community is
Mhm.
all connected.
I mean, what little we have is hospitality, restaurants and inns. But there's no industrial employer, I don't think.
Blueberry growers.
We have farmers,
Yeah.
but there's no industrial employer in Lincolnville.
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, there was a number in here. Let me pull it up.
153 businesses in Lincolnville.
Yeah, that's one of the number I was looking for.
Good
And
memory.
there's the other number, where is it? There's the number that's we found through the yellow pages of the number of businesses. And then we checked the number of businesses with the Department of Labor. So the numbers are not the same, and it's because of underground economy, which all of our small towns have.
Different type of farming.
Well, why don't we focus the pilot project on your, the Penn Bay, possible Penn Bay connection
The telehealth?
in telehealth?
Okay.
There's a whole case study from Waldo County. I think I was just looking, Waldo County has a whole case study about telehealth and working with the local communities.
Can you forward?
Yeah,
that to me?
forward it to.
Great.
Good.
And that pretty much wraps up my piece.
It's a great start. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a lot done.
We did get a lot done.
I did want to ask one question. I had it covered up here on my computer. The Lincolnville Digital Equity Inclusion Survey.
Yes.
Are we doing that?
Yeah, so that's a decision that y'all could make. Let me pull that up.
I think that's a future discussion item.
Okay.
It's something that you could leave in the plan, and then it doesn't have to be done before this plan is finalized. It could be as another to-do item going forward.
I'm always a fan of surveys.
I am too, and so, I think we should have it in the plan to do it.
Yeah.
And I think you should include it as an appendix.
Yep.
And then, depending on how we proceed, we can decide where we slot it in. It's the sort of thing that you also probably would do periodically. So you might do it, once and then 2 years from now, because presumably things will change. But I liked it.
Could we also have somewhere in here talk about a goal of getting LCI to improve its customer service, particularly with people that have, whatever happens, they lose Netflix and they don't know how to, because the password change.
That's part of what the board is doing in negotiating with them.
But it's good to put it on our goal here, I think.
Do you want
Honestly.
that?
If they solve the problem, I'm rid of that, but.
I think the select board is going to solve the problem.
You have too much faith in us.
That's why you get paid the
We'll
big
try that.
bucks.
When would you like to be?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Do you have a date when you'd like to meet again?
Oh, Susan, I just want to tell you one thing about our library, which was actually an old schoolhouse.
Oh,
And basically what we did as a town is with physical labor, there was always almost 200 of us about a decade ago, moved it with rollers over, and there's a movie, and I'll send it to you. So if you want to connect with these, with the people who are on the, on that, we actually set it in place and moved it.
wow.
So
I've
yeah,
never seen this movie. I'd love to see it too.
I'd love to see it. That's great.
yeah.
Where was it?
Across the street.
Oh,
Pardon?
they moved it from across the street?
They moved it
Yeah.
from across the street. I took a photograph of it because I was a little bit further away from it, and you could see first the house, the structure moving across the street. Yeah, yeah. So there were 200 of us with ropes, and we pulled it across the street. It was very symbolic.
Before Steve goes, what about in 2 weeks, November 17th, 6 p.m.?
Works for me.
Okay,
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today, same time, same place.
Given the,
I can't. Oh, the 17th? No, I can't do that. I teach that day in Boston.
given the responsibilities I've assumed here, I realize that I'm going to be out of the country from 20th of this month until
What?
December 10th.
But the
So the
17th
chances of me talking to Penn Bay in that period is pretty slim.
Okay, but in the next 2 weeks.
Yep, I have 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So you won't be here, okay.
everyone else could be.
No, let's pick a different day that works for you. What day is that?
I'm
week,
here the
Steve?
day before, the Wednesday, the 16th. Probably the room isn't available at 6 o'clock.
I'm good on the 16th.
We can all Zoom if we need to.
Let me just check one second.
Can you do that?
So I'm looking, I'm out of town the 14th and 15th, but 16th maybe.
Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, 7 p.m. Town Office.
I should have a deadline.
Oh, good. So we could meet from 6 to 7.
I mean,
We have to end quickly.
if we think we can,
Or start 5:30 to 7.
It's always got a room.
Right. What about 5:30 on Wednesday, November 16th?
Got it.
Works for me.
So in the meantime, I'm going to do version 2 of your plan. I will keep putting comments based on our conversation tonight. You all have homework, so as you meet with different people, just shoot me some emails, let me know what's happening with that, so as we get closer to this date, we have some confirmation on some of these, the involvement of the people that you're chatting with. And I'm gonna send you a budget, an Excel spreadsheet. And so you'll take a look at that. We're gonna embed that into the budget. We'll also do a budget narrative. I'll work on some verbiage around a pilot project so that you can take a look at that. And I'll make sure you have all of this before probably the beginning of, well, the budget I'm gonna send out probably sooner, but I'll have the version 2 of the draft probably early of the week that we're going to be meeting, probably by Monday, maybe before.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Susan.
Really appreciate it.
All right. Good luck, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so just quickly moving on, do we have any updates about the MCA grants? Any new information that members would like to share?
Nope.
Okay, well, with that, action items. Most of you have marching orders. Go have
Any
conversations.
update on LCI or still kind of?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. I'm eager to hear from our town administrator if there's any update. Okay, any non-agenda items?
Yep.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion moved by Steve,
Second.
seconded by Steven. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Arlene, how do you vote?
Let's go home. I mean, I'm already home.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go have dinner. Thank you all.
Okay.
Very much.
Steven?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
And I vote yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. See you Wednesday, November 16th at 5:30 p.m.
Thanks, everybody.